I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm kind of tired of hearing about the same games over and over and over again. Sure, I make my content, and some of those games are even mentioned here on the channel. But there are many more games out there that never get to be part of that conversation. For every Silent Hill and Resident Evil, there are hundreds of games that deserve just a little bit of time in that spotlight. So today, that's exactly what we're going to do. This won't be one of our crazy deep dives into a game or into a character. This is just going to be a quick overview of 3 games that I feel like you probably should have played, but chances are you also haven't. That's right, we are going past the trauma of James. We're going beyond the scientific discoveries in Resident Evil. We're on to something fresh. I'm not sure how many of my viewers are people who hang out on Twitch, but personally, I'm sick of seeing nothing but Outlast and Dead by Daylight. I know some of these creators are probably amazing people. I'm just really tired of those games. I enjoy searching through the genre and finding games that really aren't talked about a whole lot. Something that's slightly outside the standard. We constantly talking about survival horror games or action horror games. What about some of the weirder psychological horror, the body horror, supernatural, dark comedies? Maybe we can find a splatterpunk game. That'd be fun. It's very easy to see the importance of Resident Evil, Silent Hill, and Fatal Frame. But it won't be long before some of these other style of games are influencing the next round of horror gems that will be all the rage. Look at Five Nights at Freddy's. It went from being a small throwaway game to being one of the most important games in modern horror, even if you don't like it. I'm not a fan. It's still important though. There are just some things that are actually missing in games these days. The first one being a real love story. I'm not talking about falling in love during the course of the game, but what happens after. When bad shit happens and the person you love is actually in danger, and it's your feeling for that character that makes you push through. Another thing that is missing is body horror. If you have no idea what that subgenre is, the best way to describe it is this. It's horror that deals with deformation, mutation, and grotesque transformations of the human body. The last thing we don't normally get is a chance to see a horror RPG. And in this game, we managed to get all 3. You play as Aaron, who has one of the worst things that could possibly happen to her. The woman he loves, Elena, comes down with a curse that slowly transforms her into a monster. With the help of a member of the Vestra tribe, whose name is Mavda, they journey to a place called the Scar, a giant canyon, being held together by large chains that lead to 13 towers, each with a master in them, which he will have to defeat in order to take their flesh for Elena to eat in order to remove her curse.
Now this little morsel is beast flesh, freshly cut from servant beasts.
What?
Ah. Come now, girl. Eat it down.
Elena.
But I've never eaten meat.
Well, if you don't eat it, your fate will be sealed. You'll grow more and more monstrous. And there'll be no happy ending for you and young Aaron.
The game is played on the Wii, so yes, that means there are motion controls, which I'm usually not a fan of, but in this case I actually preferred playing it this way over the option of using a GameCube controller. Though you can use several weapons like swords and daggers, the main weapon you will use throughout the game is a chain that has been imbued in order to help with the quest to get the monster flesh. If you want something that isn't overly scary, has a great atmosphere, compelling story that also brings in the body horror elements, then this is that game. I did not see this game coming. I had no idea who the developer was, and wow, was I missing out. Point and click games are a big part of my childhood. Games like Torrent's Passage, The Neverhood, and Journey to the Edge had hundreds of hours put into them. The last thing I think of typically with horror games though is point and click, but this game brings the dread in waves. Swapping between 3 different characters and puzzle solving may not always sound like the most compelling way to start a horror game, and when it comes to this game, that idea is 100% wrong. The narrative between Mac and Charlie, a married couple who work as salvagers with a super traumatic past, as well as a sentient bear named Moses, really delves deep into loss, heartbreak, and terror. There is a moment, not gonna spoil it, but it hit me very hard in the feels and I actually felt horrible for what was going on. I started out really liking one character and by the end they were my least favorite, with the other 2 really stepping up and being amazing.
Still no response. Oil rig, oil rig, oil rig. This is salvage barge Kilo Delta Kilo 12.
The team over at Brotherhood Games not only put together a super solid story-driven game, but one that was challenging, intelligent, and all around fun to play. I rarely gush over newer games these days, and I don't believe games are ever a perfect 10 out of 10, but damn, this game certainly came close. The importance of the game Clock Tower cannot be overlooked. It's inspired many games, but one I want to talk about is this game, Remothered Tormented Fathers. It's a clear step forward in gameplay, one that I feel like Nightcry completely missed, and the narrative is something you wouldn't expect at all. I know some people will have some issues with a certain element of this story, and I won't spoil it, but didn't see that one coming at all. This game has some legitimate tense moments. The scares and gore are done with taste and timing expected from a legacy studio and not virtual newcomers like Stormline Games. Rosemary Reed is on the search for a missing child, Celeste, or Jennifer Fenton, which takes her to the house of her adopted parents, and clearly Richard Fenton is not a fan of having people there.
You'd call her Jennifer.
No, my
Mr.
daughter.
Fenton, what has really happened to your daughter?
I just told
How
you.
about the off-the-record version?
I am not sure where you're trying to go with this, but I won't tolerate. I don't have the strength for this now.
I know you've been trying to forget her, but this picture might help you to.
What is this? Where did you get this picture?
Isn't she your daughter? Celeste, or as you called her? Jennifer?
I asked you a question.
Back of the picture says Jennifer.
There is no Jennifer!
You thought I was stupid, didn't you, Mr. Felton?
It's a wild ride of solving puzzles and attempting to stay far away from the stalker characters. Yes, there is more than one, and they all pack a punch in a very different way. The design work on the characters look amazing, the world that you are in feels believable in its own little way, and the jump scares are just where they should be. It's the improvements from the point and click gameplay which really drew me in, as much as I was enjoying everything else. It managed to update that clock tower feel in a way that felt fluid and intuitive, while another game that was inspired by the name of Nightcry, which sadly missed the mark. We do have a video for the worst of the worst. It should be right there, I think. There is just something special about discovering a game that many people aren't talking about, and then being able to share the amazing experience you had. It's something I really loved about my Twitch channel. For a long time, people would hop in and chat just to see what weird game I was playing next. They never heard of any of it, but they were willing to go along for the ride. They were taking that step into the unknown and finding these weird games. I have several other games I would love to talk about. I think I'm going to have to do more of these. A quick example, I'll probably talk about it next time I do this, but Camp Sunshine definitely deserves a lot more eyes on that product. It's really good. We have a lot more videos in the pipeline working on Season 2 of The Worst, more Nightmare Arcade, the second episode of the Cursed Collections, and I want to get back to doing more deep dives, and with all the newer videos, I finally have time to work on those the way I want to. Hopefully, I'll catch you in one of those. I'm Adam the Horror Historian. Stay scared, stay curious.